Hey everyone, today is February the 28th, and I'm super excited that you carved out this time on your schedule to be with my good friend Garrett, Gunderson, and I. If you got to be here for the pre-party, congratulations. If you were late, you missed it. So I don't know, ask a friend if they can share with you what we talked about, but we're super excited for you to join us. Here's what I'd love to see, like, pop in the comment section with where you're joining us from. Garrett just said that he's in New Orleans. He is on his American Ream tour, and we'll be talking about that just a little bit later. I am in Alaska still. This is my favorite place on the planet to be. So we've got Paradise, Utah, Cleveland, Ohio, Nebraska, South Carolina, Auckland, New Zealand, Missoula, Montana, Kansas, Charleston, right on Mississippi, Wyoming, Tacoma, St. George, Utah, Honolulu. So it looks like Myra has multiple personalities. That's not really the case. She's not showing up in all of those cities at one time. Instead, it just happened how we registered it was a little bit different. So if you popped in your city, you could like put Iowa, Michelle Schwinn, or wherever you are, if you want to be identified more. So Garrett, welcome.
What's up? It's good to be with you. You always bring some good energy. I got a little story I got to start with here.
Oh, yes.
I went elk hunting last week. I think I kind of told you, and I shot an elk from 72 yards with my rangefinder, which when we paced it out was more like 85 yards because it was up a hill.
Yeah.
And he got away, Barbara. I'm disappointed in myself. But at the same time, I had a very small window of where to hit. And he's now okay. He licked his wounds. He's, I'm sure, back and at him. So I felt a little bit bad. But I'm not quite as Alaskan as you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you probably would have like hunted it down, jumped on it, got its throat with your knife, and then like drank the blood for
Yeah.
show him who was boss. But yeah, I do get a second chance next week. But I'm just gonna be weak and use a gun, you know, like,
oh, nice.
I just got to have the meat. And before Bill Gates makes it so that we're not allowed to eat meat, and then it's sedative concoction of fake meat, faux meat that he's into.
Right. Well, you know, we just did our first ever moose rib. So Stacy's on here. She lives in Alaska. And if you haven't tried those, yum. And they're like this meaty. So, you know, way different than pork ribs, but I hope it's a successful hunt. Is that the one you're doing with Jeff?
It is. And if I had like 9 good shots if I had guns on this last hunt. So, but I had never missed an animal with a gun until 3 years ago. And I missed a cow elk. I was just doing a meat hunt from the easiest shot I ever shot. And then I got home and my wife's like, "Where's the elk?" I'm like, "Safe on the mountain, babe. Safe on the mountain." So
I saved another one. You're welcome. Yeah. Nice. What caliber do you shoot when you go?
I just bought a new 300 mag. So this will be my first time shooting it. I'm excited.
Oh, right on.
Christensen's arms, it feels so light. And you know, I was able to finally buy like a huge box of ammo. So I'm excited about it.
Nice. So for those of you who are hunters as well, you're welcome for that little conversation. You know, if you're not into hunting, and this really leads beautifully into this whole conversation that we're going to have today about income. It's amazing what things you open yourself up to when you're willing to just try. You know, like think about like when I met Ben, the kids and I, we didn't like sushi and we didn't like all of these different kinds of foods. And he was like, "How many times have you eaten it?" And I'm like, "Well, never." It's like, well, why don't you just try it? And so much of life, I mean, who can agree with me? Like, who as a kid that said they didn't like something and you forced them to try it and now they love it, right? So I'm that way with hunting, and my prayer for all of you throughout our next 125 minutes together is that your mind will be completely open to see things that you never saw before. I love the work that I've done with Demi and now Michael Neal on that thinking creates our reality. I even have it as a sticker on my phone. Well, you can't really see it, just to remind myself that thinking creates our reality is really powerful. So let me just do a formal introduction. So, most people know Garrett as obviously GQ Jesus, which, the tag does fit. And that was originally from Rich, right? GQ Jesus.
Rich Christensen gave me that title.
Which, if Rich, that really becomes comical. So, Garrett for decades now has been disrupting really the thought process about money and about financing and investing, and has tons of fans because of it, as well has a bunch of enemies. Go figure. Like, when we have something new in a community, it can cause people to not like us. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. So for those of you who feel like you're taking arrows from every which way, good job.
But it's mostly just angry people that don't feel like they have a voice on YouTube. So I feel for them. And, I imagine more people would hate me because I hunt than what I'm talking about in finance. So yeah. Like, I went hunting with Ben Greenfield last year. He got all these death threats because he posted a picture of us hunting.
Did he wear shoes?
No, not through a lot of the hunt, but then he got too cold and had to go back when I shot my elk. So he maybe should have wore some shoes.
I remember seeing him somewhere speaking.
He's just like all quiet, and he didn't want to wear boots to make it, So yeah, when we got there, he told the guides, he goes, "Oh, we're in super good shape, so we can go as far hiking as you want." And I was like, well, "I'm in good shape. He's in the super good shape. He's superhuman. So I'm a above average human."
Yeah. All right. So you guys head off to a Kodiak hunt sometime and let me know.
That'll be next level. And I promise I'll stick to a topic of finance. I just haven't, talked to Barbara in a couple of weeks, so we're just letting you in on our conversation.
Yeah, on our conversation. It usually is about hunting.
Masterclass, yeah.
So, and this is really where I want to start too, and that is Garrett's mission has never changed. It's always been the same, but his approach has completely changed, and he's going to share with us what that has been like. And for so many, I see doctors, especially right now with this hype about like scale your business and automate and do something different. Like I see so many of you chasing around trying to figure it out what you want to do. And I just invite you throughout this time that we're with Garrett to quiet your thinking and investigate. If your mission is still the same, maybe just your approach is going to be different. And, I got to meet Garrett. Some of you have heard this story, but in case you haven't, I'll share it with you. So I went to Matthew Loop's Social Media Revenue Summit in 2018, and Garrett was a speaker there, and he did his thing, and I watched, and he went to the back of the room, and I'm like, there's my opportunity. I'm going to take that shot. And so he was just minding his own business. So of course I went up and introduced myself, because my philosophy is that everyone on the planet wants to meet me. And thankfully he did. And so we started talking, and actually I think the first thing we started talking about was hunting and was the Alaskan experience. And I'm like texting he and Carrie all these pictures. And so that friendship then led to, I had asked Garrett, and at the end, towards the end of 2018, I asked him to be my private coach. He's like, I'm really flattered, but I don't do private coaching anymore one-on-one, but I do one-day intensives. And I have one spot remaining this year. And I'm like, I'll take it. I didn't know the price tag. I didn't know any of the details, but it seemed like the right thing to do. So it was $25,000. Which I had never even come close to spending that much before. And I flew to Salt Lake and got to meet Rich Christensen, who is a great friend and mentor of Garrett's. And so the three of us sat literally in blankets in Garrett's bedroom in his cabin, which could totally turn into a really racy story, but that's not what it was. And it was all filmed, which probably is even
New
worse.
cabin didn't know that the propane hadn't been filled. I was like, thank God I have an Alaskan woman that's here, because I don't think anyone else would have been able to handle it. And you were great about it. So
yeah, and it was perfect. And I got to tell all of you, for those of you who've been with me for a while, we've been talking about the hamster wheel. And I remember sitting there and Garrett asking me some questions, and I am just littering off like proving my worth on the hamster wheel. Like, I'm up at 3:30 and I don't shut it down till 10 p.m. and just going like, and he and Rich are just like, and never judgment at all, but more so like, it's okay, honey. Like, we'll help you. And
we've been there. We've done that. We tried that before. Yeah.
So Garrett, let's start there as we jump into mission and approach. And what was the turning point for you to go from hamster wheel, which, hey, by the way, we all want you to know it works. Like, I've achieved amazing results in my life, and I know Garrett has too, on the hamster wheel.
Right.
And before we jump in, can I just show you something super cool?
Yeah.
You ready? Look at this 52-year-old. All right, so go ahead.
So look, before I was even on the hamster wheel, I was like, one of the things I want to teach today is these 4 personas. And these 4 money personas dictate how you make your decisions, good or bad. It's a matter of whether you're in your shadow or winning persona. And I had come from this family that was really about, you got to hold on to what you've got, because you never know if it could be taken from you, if it's not enough to get by, because my great grandfather had to leave his wife and as she was pregnant to come to the United States to make a living, and didn't see her for 7 years. So I had grown up with like scrimping, saving, sacrificing, budgeting. So I spent a lot of time focused on a very limited, finite game of trying to, and by the way, this is my family's favorite game to play. My kids ask my wife about times I was a miser and what I did when I was miserly. And then they like to hysterically laugh about it because I'm not really that person anymore. And what happened is, once I kind of got past that miserly play not to lose scarcity mindset, I still adopted a new scarcity mindset called striver, which is more about play to win. More, bigger, better, faster, hustle, grind, and work and scale. And you know, you always can take care of things later. If you work, the notion was, if I work like no one else does today, I can live like no one else does tomorrow. But my dad pointed out, you can never get back the memories that you never create. And so ultimately, I was in striver mode for probably the majority of my life, which was status. How can I have a bigger business than other people I know? How can I make more money than other people I know? How can I demonstrate my wealth with the physical things that I buy so I could feel really important? And this was a big part of my life for a long time. And the problem is, in that mindset, I always felt like I could work harder to make more, and I could sacrifice, and that eventually it would get better. But sacrifice becomes a permanent resident when we lie to ourselves and think it's going to be a temporary guest. It's not a temporary guest, because our habits start to own who we are. And those habits of, if I just work harder, I can have more. But the question is, more of what? And for me, I had to recognize that I was trying to fill an unfillable void. That if I had earned enough money, that I was somehow more valuable. That if I'd earned enough money, then I was more lovable. And what happened for me was, really, my wife was like a mirror, holding up the mirror and saying, is this what you want? Do you like what you see? Is it worth what you're doing? Or what if we actually had some time to enjoy life along the way? And so it was basically, I took the introspection assessment from Lifebook that John and Missy Butcher had created, who are clients and friends of mine. And I realized there were 2 areas of my life that were suffering. So look, career-wise, I just wrote a New York Times bestseller at the time. You know, we were on track to hit the Inc. 500. Like it, you know, I had all these other areas fairly dialed in, but 2 areas that suffered were my health and my marriage. And so in this moment, I was like, well, yeah, I'm definitely overweight. My triglycerides are high. Like I'm not living my best life that way. And then I looked at my marriage and I'm like, I'd been married for, I don't know, I think at the time, maybe 7 years. And my wife just assumed she was going to go to everything by herself, like every wedding, every function, because I was addicted to yes, because I couldn't discern an opportunity from a distraction. Everything looked like an opportunity. So I said yes so often that I didn't have time for myself, which was my health, and for my wife, which, look, that's the most rewarding relationship I've ever invested in, is my relationship with my wife. We just spent the weekend in Chicago, had an amazing time. Like, she's my best friend. she just can speak so eloquently about like the lessons I need to have in life. And so what happened was, when I'm in the midst of that, and she comes down the hallway and she's like, so is this what life's going to be? Like this, I'm just going to be alone. Like, I don't know if I would have signed up for this knowing what I know now. And I was like, oh, well, that really sucks. Like that really hit me hard. And so,
Garrett, can I speed bump there for just a second? So I want to like also just give Carrie an applause about this too. And you probably recall saying this when you did your comedy in April that I was there, and something that she said to you when your sons asked her, like, well, why would dad do that? And Carrie just so lovingly said, you know, he worked that hard because at the time he believed that was how to best protect us and take care of us.
yep.
And so I bring that up because I think whether male or female, when you're in relationship like that and the other person is going and going and going and going, it's so important that we check ourselves as well if we're the one that's not going, to see like where is our heart in all of this as well. And I think it's just such a testament to her character to, I mean, she could bash you in front of her sons. And yet she's like, that thinking is what appeared best to dad. And for all of you, if you're feeling guilty about running hard, you're probably doing the best that you think that you can, given the thinking that appears real to you.
Right. And these are like getting right into the solutions of it is this. There's really a few pieces of this approach that were shocking and so effective. Like shocking in that it was this easy, but at the same time, this hard for a lot of strivers. The first thing I did was my wife and I planned 5 years from the, well, okay, I guess there's a lot to this. The first thing that we did is I looked at my business. I said, why do I have so many things dialed in my business I don't have dialed in my marriage? And the first realization I had was I had a vision for my business to liberate 1 million people to achieve economic independence, to change the family's financial future and destiny by helping them heal with money. What was my vision for my marriage? No vision. There was nothing. But then I said, I want to be a premier romantic and an extraordinary husband. And by setting that context, vision is the container in which we create value. It tells our brain what's important, what to pay attention to. And when we're not clear about it, then that space gets filled either with negativity to fill the void or busyness to fill the void. So having a vision was a big thing. The second thing, I always have meetings in my business every week. Why don't I have a meeting in my marriage? So my wife and I started to meet every week. And at first there were some difficult meetings because I'd neglected our relationship for a while. So it wasn't just all butterflies and unicorns. It was some, you know, like, I remember one time we got pretty loud in a meeting in my office. And I'm like, God, my team probably thinks we're crazy. But I start asking, how am I doing on a scale of 1 to 10? And if I wasn't a 10, I'd say, what do I have to do to be a 10? And then we created date night, because in your business, you have certain rituals and traditions. Why not have that in your marriage? And I started spending time with people who are extraordinary at their marriage. And I asked them what their best practices were. And I started to create these rules for my marriage, which were, hey, I want to always have a trip on the books I'm looking forward to. So you can start to enjoy a trip before you even go on it when you know it's coming. So we always have something on the books that we could look forward to. Like we had the best time in Chicago this weekend. What did I do as a premier romantic? Well, I wrote 5 handwritten cards, put them in her purse, put them in her luggage. Like, you know, I booked a nostalgic restaurant that we'd went to 12 years ago. You know, I had a bottle of, I don't even really drink, but I had a bottle of champagne in the room. So we love to like just pop a bottle of champagne and talk and reminisce. And, you know, I got a really nice, like, I just did a thing at Premier Romantic. I spent hours on a playlist that was just built for the trip and asked my friends on, you know, Facebook, like, what's your best songs, and kind of created that playlist. So what happened is I started to invest in other areas of my life in meaningful ways, in the ways I had invested as a striver in my business. And so now I had to create space for it. So my wife was just talking to some people last night at the comedy club, and they're asking questions about me, you know, because they're interested in her perspective. And she goes, well, Garrett never has his phone on him after 6 p.m. He doesn't ever let his computer come into our bedroom. It's always just in his office. So it's never a chance he's going to get on and start doing some work or something like that. And so again, I just created rules that help me with that structure. And in 2012 is when I fully invested in my marriage, to the point where that's still one of those extraordinary years that I remember. And the crazy thing is, I went to my CEO at the time. I said, I really want to spend time with my wife this year. And he goes, look, he says, we need to revamp some things in the business anyway. He goes, I promise you this, even if we make less revenue, you're going to get paid the same this year. If you trust me, we'll do it. And he cleaned things up and we made a little less revenue, and I got paid more that year because we focused on margin. We got rid of distractions. I stopped saying yes to everything so that we could be strategic about what I was going to say yes to and create that space. So the second thing that helped me heal with this, as from being a striver, is I found hobby. I found hobbies, but I started with a hobby. So after we went to Italy, I got into coffee. So I bought an amazing espresso machine, and I went and took a class in LA from a barista for Intelligentsia. And I bought one of my employees, who's a great coffee roaster, a machine, and he became my mentor. And that's something that's now tradition every morning, that we get up and we have coffee together, my wife and I. So that was one hobby. Then I got into, a little bit of fishing, and I got into I became a whiskey sommelier, and I really got into writing poetry and writing comedy. I started creating time for things that weren't about making money. They were just about creating happiness in my life. And most people, when they're a striver, they don't have time for a hobby, but we listen to intuition. You might call it the voice within, you might call it God, whatever it is that you call it. We don't have time in the busy world to listen anymore, because we don't do things where we have no noise. So when I'm working in my garage, or when I'm, working on a little art project called The Roast, where I take comedy and coffee and combine them, where I can roast people's bad financial decisions while I roast them coffee as an art cart, I all of a sudden have this time to think, have time for these things to come in, and I can listen to that intuition. So a hobby can unlock you. Even if it doesn't make you money, it creates space for you to receive. And we're so busy on the treadmill of giving that if you want to get to the next level, you have to receive. And then it was about finding someone outside of my immediate family I could pour unconditional love into. Because when I can pour unconditional love into someone, I can fill that void of where I hadn't accepted and loved myself. But usually we say, hey, work on yourself, love yourself, but it's kind of hard to do because we don't get this really clear roadmap necessarily of how to do it. But if we pour that love into someone else, it starts to show us how to love ourselves. And look, you might be able to do that with a spouse or a child, but what I'm saying is find someone else that you can just become an advocate and just pour and give. Because what I find is the more love we give, the more love we're able to give. The more love we give, the more love we're able to receive. And so if you can really find that hobby, pour love into someone, create a vision in the areas of your life where you're not dialed in the highest levels that you want to be, and then create some space and rules so that you don't get bombarded or overwhelmed with work. And it's tough at first. I had this woman, Bab Smith, who's the president of Strategic Coach, Dan Sullivan's wife, that said, if you take more time off, you'll make more money. And this was in my 20s. I was in full striver mode. And I was like, I don't know how that's possible. It doesn't make sense to me. So I talked to these guys, Gerald and Rick, who I did a lot of business with. I said, hey, let's take a day off. And they're like, great, we're taking you snowmobiling. I'm like, good. Let's make sure there's no phone service there. Let's make sure I don't have my phone on me, because it was like a crack addict. Like, where's my phone? What if a client needs me in an emergency and the whole world melts down because I can't answer, right? Like I had these weird beliefs that way. But I took that day off, and it was hard because I was so used to working. And then I started saying, look, I don't work on the weekends. And I just started to create these parameters, and it took some time, and I had to ask other people to help me. Like any addict that's addicted to work kind of needs that outside force and help. And what happened is my life started to massively improve. And I started to make even more money. The year I went to Italy for the summer, I'd never made more money than that year up until that point in my entire life, because my team had to grow up. They had to do things on their own. They had to figure things out without me babysitting them, which they didn't want to be babysat. They wanted to be powerful, and allowed them to be more powerful. And when I went to Italy, it was a 5-year process from the time we said we wanted to go to the time we took a summer. So it wasn't something that happened overnight, but it gave me something to have to redefine what work meant and how that happened. So look, that's a long answer, but it's an important answer, because a lot of us are stuck in one of these 4 losing personas. The miser, who plays a game called preservation, who will end up with funds that they won't spend because they're addicted to holding on to what they've got. Or the conservative, not a political ideology, but the conservative that plays a game called accumulation, which thinks that they can delay gratification and if they can defer, that one day, someday, they can finally enjoy life. Then the striver plays a game called status and will inevitably burn out. And then the high roller plays a game called opportunity, but takes on too much risk and cuts corners and ends up going bankrupt eventually. So those are the 4 negative sides of these personas. There's a positive side, but we have to understand our shadow side of where the traps happen that start to rob us of our time and confiscate our wealth, because all 4 of those limit your output when it comes to wealth. Limit your value creation because it's really stuck in these losing games. So miser, conservative, striver, high roller. And I'll just put a way that you can find out which one you are right here in the chat for free, because it'll be super helpful. I don't recommend you do it right this second because we're doing this right now, but that'll just help you identify your positive and negative. And we'll get to the positive side of it as well. But that's a pretty long story to a very pivotal moment in my life where I stopped being the striver and I started embracing being the creator.
And so all of you, it's .com. That's not like some fancy thing.
XOM. Yeah, sorry.
I put it in there.
Me in a dark room in New Orleans, not knowing what I typed, apparently.
So two observations, and if you have questions or comments, throw them in the comment. We do want this to be dialogue. This is not designed to just be monologue. Garrett does lots and lots of speaking, and we love listening and hearing and knowing each one of you. So feel free to do. That's how, and I just want to teach you guys all something that I have done successfully in my life that has opened unbelievable doors. And you heard it in the very first part of the story that Garrett didn't know who I was. So I made sure he knew who I was. I like stepped out. And so even on something like this, like you don't know the doors that could be opened for you because you speak up and your name is known and we remember you and you participate. And no matter what in life, it's not a spectator sport. So those who participate the most, you're going to get the most out of this. So ask questions, whatever your yeah buts are that are coming up. Like someone said, I'm in the striver startup mode and feel like I'm struggling to get started. What suggestions do you have? Well, interestingly, Garrett gave them. But what happens is we can't hear when we're spinning in our thinking because we're like, yeah, but. And so we miss out on so much. And whoever you are, I'm not like bashing you. I'm showing you what happens when we're stuck in this mode. And there's such a beautiful invitation for all of us to step into really a life of at least periods of time of no thought. So Garrett, I do have this question.
Let me answer that question a little deeper when you finish what you're saying, but her question, I have some more context for it.
Yeah. And all of this is getting to the point like we're working super hard. We put in lots of hours to make a difference and accumulate wealth. So then we finally have time. Well, what if we reverse engineer it? And what if we don't sacrifice along the way to get to the point where then we have what we want? What if instead we consciously create our life from here forward such there's never a place that we want to hit pause. There's never a place that we want to escape to, but this is just how we live our life. Like that is on offer. Go ahead.
All right. So 2 things. First off, here's the 4-part process to accomplish any vision without getting stuck in sacrifice or without getting into striver mode. The very first step is we have to co-create. Find someone that can support or inspire you, someone that can bring accountability so you can move beyond a scarcity mindset when you get stuck in it. If we think time, money, or ability or a limiting factor, it's only because we're trying to do too much alone. When we try to do too much by ourselves, we get trapped in a losing game and we go to whatever our persona is, like striver, and try to work our way out of it. So Co-creation is absolutely key. So like when I was writing comedy, I immediately call a comedian and say, hey, I want to write with you. When I'm filming a special, I'm talking to my manager who knows where all of the players are in that world and start co-creating. When you're talking money, you call me and we co-create this class. So co-creation is something most people don't get to because of scarcity, because they think that they've got to handle it on their own for it to count. Reminds me when I was a kid, I'd go fishing with my grandfather and he had a fishing boat and we would have these, we would troll along the lake and we'd catch so many fish, but everything was set up to troll on the lake. But then I was like, oh, I want to catch fish on my own. And I would take all the gear from the river or from the lake and try to catch something in the river, which I never caught because I didn't, if I would have asked my grandfather, he would have got a fly rod and he would have showed me. But like, why do we want to like do all this by ourselves? And it's because of scarcity, a lack of belief in ourselves, fear, admission that we don't know something, we don't want to be vulnerable, like all those factors. But co-creation is the first thing. Now, the second step is, I think, the hardest step, but the one that's instrumental. And it's, we have to eliminate escapism. Escapism is when we get caught up in like a TV or movie series character rather than our own life, when we don't know how to deal with or don't want to deal with people. So we escape to social media or the news or some negative person rather than looking at the cost of a relationship, especially the one with ourselves. So think of it. Is there anything that you're sweeping under the rug and hope it goes away? Anything that we delay or choose not to address creates more pain and takes more time in the long run. So we have to take responsibility, eliminate escapism. Like escapisms are like, what are people doing so they don't have to face what's really going on in their life? It's when we avoid pain rather than go forward with it and through it. And that avoidance starts to become who we are. So when I say I'm going to do a 15-city comedy tour, the escapism comes in of like, oh, you should just watch this TV series because you're never going to be a comedian. Oh, you should, I don't know, like you should just sleep because then you don't have to deal with this kind of stuff. Like there's all these escapisms. And like when I didn't want to have difficult conversations with my wife, my body would convince me I was so tired I couldn't stay awake. Like that's how powerful an escapism is. We don't see it as an escapism. It's a coping mechanism that we've lied to ourselves with, that our brain tricks us into. Here's an example: psychosomatic pain. People will get actual physical pain because they haven't dealt with their emotions. And that emotion starts to be stored in their body and starts to be expressed as physical pain. So they go, oh, I got to go take care of this pain rather than deal with their emotions. That's escapism. So if you procrastinate, it creates more pain in the long run. And I get it. It's easy to make moments so big that we pretend there isn't time for anything else. And difficult conversations are hard to have. But if you don't have them, they start to own you. So the first step is that we co-create. The second is we have to create the space by eliminating the things that become our complaints or that take too much of our time. The third step is to delegate. As you build momentum, as you have personal or professional kind of success, and then you delegate those roles, ROLES, not tasks. Tasks are like boomerangs that keep coming back around asking what to do next, where a role will remove the micromanagement, freeing you up so you have more free time and that you're only doing the things that are most critical based upon what you know best. Finally, the last step is collaboration. We're in a world filled and fueled by isolation. Isolation. I'm this versus that. I got to do this. Like, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. That's all BS that comes from scarcity. Collaboration is where you take a vision and it gets expanded because you utilize and leverage the talent of people that are so extraordinary in areas that it's bigger than you could have ever thought. When I filmed my comedy special, I had Marty Callner as an executive producer. Marty did the first music video ever done. He did the first ever comedy special ever taped. He won an Emmy with Seinfeld. I mean, he had a bigger vision. I brought in Tom Lenz, who did a Chappelle comedy special, and he had a brilliant and beautiful set design. So like collaboration is when you've done the work, you've got the momentum, you've got some team, and then you expand what you're doing by including more people into it. And when we're burned out, we're trying to do too much alone. And maybe we're taking on too many things. And maybe we're chasing the dollar at the expense of where we're really headed to. And we're stuck in distraction rather than opportunity. And we don't have time for ourselves. So now we're burned out rather than taking the time for ourselves so we show up in the best of who we are. And this can seem counterintuitive because we think we've got, well, I got to pay the bills and I've got to get more patients and I got to do more stuff. That's your addictions. That's your escapism from facing what is your real vision and why are you doing what you're doing. If you're not clear about it, all you're going to do is chase revenue, chase patients, and be frustrated when other people do more than you or have more than you because they're living aligned with their purpose and who they are, which shows up as more energy, capacity, and collaboration. People collaborate with those who have vision. My vision is to plant a seed of hope, connection, and expression in the hearts of a billion people on this planet so we can choose love again and heal. And that is my bigger vision and why I have the context of comedy. And it completely changes how I operate and who I collaborate with. I now have the biggest names involved on the comedy circuit as a rookie comedian because my vision was compelling enough. And that compelling vision excites people. If you don't have a vision, you're stuck in the work. And when you have a vision, you've already won. Vision is the win, value is the way, dollars are the byproduct, and prosperity becomes your state of being. Address your escapisms, take responsibility. Otherwise that undermines your vision and your ability to deliver value.
How many of you feel like, okay, I just need to like rewind this and like hear it 1,000 times? Anyone else? Right? And you know, I want to speak to the mastery that you just witnessed in Garrett. That you know, one thing I loved about the Win Them Play. So when, and Sarah asked a question and said hello to you as well, Garrett. So Garrett invited me to come to the taping of the comedy show in April. And as soon as I got his invitation, I was like, yes, I don't even know what's on my schedule, but yes, I'll clear whatever that is. Yes, I'll be there. And then I was invited to bring a guest. And so I asked Dr. Sarah Perry, many of you know her in the boot camp, and she immediately said yes as well. I don't even know if she had to clean stuff, but she came. And one of the things that really compelled me on the second day was you talked about committing to mastery of your lines for the comedy set. Like it wasn't just willy-nilly, like you took it to that top level, like learning about coffee to the top level, to fully experience what it is that you wanted to taste and experience in your life, just like all of you just witnessed him like going, right? Like in like every single sentence was something you could write down as like, you know, a life sentence to live by. And that didn't happen randomly.
No, that's if you're going to be a steward, stewardship means you may have been given this ability, but you expand that ability with the responsibility that you pay to it. So I feel like this is a strange term, but Barbara will understand it. I feel like I was bestowed or bequeathed something. Like it was a gift from the heavens, this one-man show that we haven't even really talked about here today that Barbara's seen. You were there when I was still reading lines, and then you saw the first time I did it publicly.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours working on lines with a coach, with a director, with a screenwriter, with rowing and reciting it, writing it on 3x5 cards over and over again till it sinks in. Rating what each line is on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as the impact and how it needs to be delivered. Writing down every beat. Where does the pause need to occur? What am I informing the audience of right now? What's the verb that describes what the action is behind the intention of the play? Like what needs to be removed? What needs to be reorganized? Like it's a level that absolutely is a gift to be cherished, but is work. But the thing is, because it is so critical to my vision, I'm winning in the work. I'm not trying to get somewhere. I am somewhere with how I'm being. And it's so hard in today's society because of we play not to lose, we're stuck in the past. We play to win, we're stuck in the future. It's hard to be present. This is the work that I do every day. How can I be more present? How can I be present with someone? How can I become a better listener? Because as I listen to people, I start to listen to God more as well. And ultimately, that's where I don't have to be well read. I have to be well listening. I have to be really able to listen because I don't know where some of this comes from, but I do know it comes from tapping into consciousness and being gifted if I'm willing to do the work and be a steward of it. And I am. So we have to remember this word stewardship, because as a doctors, you've been indoctrinated to think that what you learned in books make you like more knowledgeable. Now you see beyond that, I think, for the most part, but we're in a society that says if you're indoctrinated in the wrong philosophy and get a degree, that you're somehow superior to other people's intellect. But the reality is, when we're indoctrinated in the wrong philosophy or a faulty premise, you become extraordinarily knowledgeable about things that are not true. Look at typical MDs with their bullshit with this vaccination. They know nothing about it. All they know is what Big Pharma has told them. And ultimately, the very people that put us in an epidemic when it came to opioids is somehow going to solve the problem. No, but they become condescending about it because they think they're superior because of the knowledge that they've read that was faulty information. Faulty. And so this is why it's important to create space, have a hobby, and listen to intuition, because you don't have to spend years learning something. It will be given to you if you are willing to do the work once it's yours. And it's not even yours. You're just a steward of it temporarily. And so that requires doing the right work, not just any work. Hard work with the wrong philosophy leads to bankruptcy, frustration, and failure. It's about the right philosophical construct, which is your vision, and then living out that vision where other things become inconsequential or they become subsequent to who you are, which is your sole purpose, which is your values, which is your script for how you live, which is your abilities, which you have that you can develop. And it's also your passions, which give you the energy behind it. And when we look at your unique combination of those things, well, that's your sole purpose. It's who you are when you're at your best, fully self-expressed. But in order to find it or remember it, it's to be remembered. We listen to our intuition. It's the gut feeling. It's a light feather to the face. Easy to ignore in the moment. If we ignore, leads to unrest, even depression. It's not about copying what someone else does, because that's great for systems and processes, but sole purpose is not formulaic. It's unique to you. So who are you? That's the first question. When you know who you are, you start to see what you're capable of. When you develop those capabilities in a way that's serving others and solving problems consistent with who you are, you eliminate sacrifice. And so, look, I think that one of the things I'm here to help defeat in this world is the notion of sacrifice. Now, in a spiritual context, sacrifice means to make sacred. That's beautiful. But in a business context, sacrifice means to give up who you are now for the promise of something later. But we lose who we are in our sole purpose by sacrificing in the moment. Time for money, right? Scrimping, saving, sacrifice, delaying, deferring. It's always one day, someday. It's never about today. But look, I had partners die at age 35. I don't believe in sacrificing this moment for a future that isn't guaranteed. I believe in creating a compelling future and living fully today. And when we're not living fully today, wealth will be evasive. It will be elusive. It will be something that you are chasing, but to never catch, just like the horizon when you're in a boat. We're speeding toward the horizon always is out there, a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further, and we lose our humanity. It's time to connect. And the way we connect through getting through escapism is choose any pain or any delay with love and compassion, because on the other side of that pain is connection. On the other side of that pain is connection. Look, I mean, I feel like this is a money thing, but I'm just going to say, in my own personal belief system that I believe Barbara shares, is there was no reason to sacrifice anymore because Jesus already did that. And that gave us this gift of we don't have to live in sacrifice. We can live in love. And when you choose love, you'll have more wealth, because love is the ultimate abundant resource. Connected, collaborative, powerful. And yet we're in a world right now where people's fears are starting to try to determine our freedoms. My freedom doesn't end where people's fear begins. I am here to be a truth teller when it comes to money, but the reason why money is important is because it is one of the things that blinds people from others. It's the thing that people use people and love money and they lose themselves. But if we use money and love people, we find ourselves and we find our humanity, and we realize all the sole purpose already on the planet today can solve the problems that we face. The problem is most people are stuck trading their time for money, giving up who they are, confused about life, complaining about what everybody else is doing, and they're stuck in their escapisms. And those escapisms can be tough because it means facing our demons and our fears and our insecurities. I mean, you think it's easy to do a 15-city tour in the middle of COVID when you're not a known comedian? No, it's not easy. I face my insecurities at moments. I struggle with things from time to time. The thing is, my struggles are much shorter. They're much more limited because I have an awareness. And the way I get through that, because someone asked, is I call people I love and respect, and I acknowledge what I'm going through in the moment and allow them to ask me questions I can't ask of myself. I create value for people in this world so that I can make deposits into relationship capital. So when I need some support, this is the thing that will change your life. I ask for support. I asked Barbara for support. I'm doing a comedy tour. I would love your support. Will you come and be here live when I tape it because you have an amazing energy? Will you let people know about it so that I can be doing comedy to full rooms instead of empty rooms, which scares the hell out of me? And you know what? It means I got in arguments with my co-writer. It means that I dealt with stuff with my wife where I was starting to numb out because I was so focused on comedy and not enough on a relationship. But guess what? That was an hour instead of a year. It was a 2-day argument with my co-writer rather than an ending of a relationship, because I was willing to face the fear with love and compassion, knowing on the other side is consciousness and connection. We have to reconnect, whether it's to our money or whether it's to the people or whether it's to our mistakes. And don't let our mistakes define us. Mistakes are just part of the process. We don't have to avoid all the mistakes. The only mistake that you have to avoid is anything that wraps love in conditions. Because mistakes don't make us less lovable. They just make us human. And so where do you have to forgive yourself? That's the question. Like, I did something that hurt my wife years ago. And I was like, if that's the person I love the most, what does that say about me? And then she's like, it says you're human. It says that you make mistakes. And she goes, if you were too perfect, it's already annoying that your hair is going gray one strand at a time. It's already annoying that you eat what you want and you don't gain weight, and I do, so she's already annoyed with all that kind of stuff. So she's like, great, you're imperfect. It makes you more lovable. I call it our quirks. We have to embrace our quirks. It's the things that most people hide from that make them most enticing and exciting, right? It's like, just own who you are and let the chips fall where they may. Like, Barb is pretty much herself. If like people are going to love her, hey, Barbara, because she's like, I hunt, I love Christ, I love Trump. I mean, all this kind of stuff. Like, like that's like a recipe for hatred and for some people.
Right. And it never occurs to me really that, I don't know, I guess I just don't think about how it's going to land with somebody else. I don't know. I don't know what that quirk is, but I want to speed bump something that you said. Just one second.
I think I answered some of the questions in the.
I do too. And keep your comments coming. I'm going to read them in just a second. I won't be blurry here in just a minute. And for those of you, whether you're a Christian or not, I can't emphasize, you can't see it. This little devotional enough. It's called Jesus Calling. Some of you are getting it in the mail from me. But this relates to the future. And Michael Neal actually said this in his book, Effortless Success, which I think is it's so simple, but yet true. Not one person has ever lived a day in the future except Christ. But all of us are spending so much time as if we're already in the future. You can't live there. And even so in this one, it says, this is like God speaking to us. And it says, you need not fear the future, for I am already there. When you make that quantum leap into eternity, you will find me waiting for you in heaven. Your future is in my hands. I release it to you day by day, moment by moment. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow. And then he says this, I want you to live this day abundantly, seeing all there is to see, doing all there is to do today. Today. How many things are we putting off, like Garrett's talking about, for that eventual day? Time is never going to change, no matter what. Every single one of us has been given 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's never going to be more. It's never going to be less, ever. And as you heard Garrett speak, you could hear his passion and excitement. And for sure, there were days that getting ready for his comedy was work, no doubt, just like the rest of us in practice. And when we're so in tune with our heart, like, do you remember Cairo school? Do you remember opening your practice and just like, it was so easy to say no to distractions because you saw what you wanted and it was right there. That's what we're talking about here, is coming alive again and remembering who you are, all of your faults, like they're in the past. And everyone, you already recognize this, the past is made up. Like, it's already gone. So you've made up whatever you want about it. And the future we don't have. We only have right now. So Garrett, can you talk for a minute about Win on the Buy? You briefly touched on it, but like that was another thing on that 2-day on the Win Then Play that really just sunk in for me, was Win on the Buy. What does that mean?
So first, let's distinguish the two losing paradigms of scarcity. Play
Okay.
not to lose, which is holding on to the past, as you just said. Play to win, stuck in the future, not being present. Both forms of scarcity. One, scrimp, sacrifice, save, defer. The other one, hustle, grind, and work. Really important to understand, because most people think of scarcity as just scarcity, and they judge the other ones as being scarce versus looking at themselves. So the paradigm I believe in is win first, then play. We win when we create a vision that's so compelling we build a life we don't want to retire from. People want to retire because they're not building the life that they love. Like they're not in work that's compelling enough, creative enough, engaged enough. They're trading time for money. And it's a sickness we have in the world right now, retirement. Retirement's like something they do to an old cow behind the barn. Like, you know, like when they retire a plane or a vending machine or a jersey, that's not good news. It means it's not useful anymore. So what does that say about us when we retire? It means we got to retire that concept. The icons in the world don't ever retire. They just expand their vision. So retirement is a concept that is a construct where there's lack of vision. So when we win first, it means we've created a game worth playing. Are you playing a game that's worth winning? How do you know? Well, when you determine the rules, then it's your game. Like I just don't really do email, as you will know from my lack of response to emails, Barbara. You know, but I do text because I just have too many uninvited guests in email. And I just don't, you know, like I've been completely off social media for over a year and back into it because of my comedy tour, because I'm whoring myself out to put people in a comedy club, I'll admit. But that's a temporary game. Like I know that that's a game until December, and then I'm off social media again. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with someone else being on social media. I'm talking about the rules of my game. I'm talking about being off my computer at 6 o'clock. I'm talking about like doing date. Like I just created my rules because I made them up. Like that's what business is you get to make up how business works. Like when do you want to see patients? When don't you want it? Like it's just this game. But most people have well-intentioned preachers, teachers, family, and friends tell them what game to play. And now they're playing the wrong game because it's a game different than who they are. If you're playing a game called I want to make my dad happy or my mom happy, or that's a losing game because you can't control their happiness. And if you don't pick the game that makes you happy, you've lost from day one. So what's your game worth winning? You got to create that up front. Now, in finance, there's ways you can win up front. So making money on the buy or winning before you begin means A, cash flow from day one in a positive way. B, you buy something that immediately is worth more than what you paid for it because you either had cash, unique knowledge, you know, a way to improve the value of it. Like that's the next thing. Like you could buy a business that might cash flow from day one, or a business that you could buy, rehab and sell, or a property you could buy, put a team in there, sell 3 months later and flip it and make money. This is all like, you're not waiting for 30 years. You're looking for ways to make money on the buy. Like even becoming economically independent, where you have enough cash flow from your assets to cover your basic expenses, means you've already won the game of money. You've covered your basic expenses. You get to choose day to day what you want to do. You can swing for the fences in your business because you know you've got your stability, you've got your security, and you've got your basic foundational pieces handled for your family. Because let's face it, most people marry someone that's not the same money persona. I am the striver when I'm at my worst. My wife is a conservative when she's at her worst. So now we haven't thought about money since 2008, which I think is a pretty amazing feat. Because I understand the positive side of the conservative is something called the planner. The planner is a stable, thoughtful, and strategic person They're great at reducing risk. They're great at planning for contingencies. They're great at monitoring the effectiveness of any initiative. They're good at fact finding. Me, on the positive side of the striver, is the creator, an artist, an inventor, or an entrepreneur. They're great at leading with innovation and ingenuity, so they can create anew. And so one of the things is, when you have a planner and a creator operating well together, that is an amazing team, because one says what and why, and the other one says how and when. There's not many people that can ask all four of those questions and answer them effectively. So it's great when you can team up, when you know the positive side of this. So like, when we became economically independent, my wife became my biggest cheerleader. It wasn't, oh, you're doing a new book, how long before that pays off? Or you're gonna do a comedy career? How do comedians make money? And is that gonna be something, are you funny? And like, she was like, cool, we have our lifestyle handled. Let's go all in. If it takes a month longer or 6 months longer, it doesn't infringe upon which schools our kids go to, what type of food we eat, what type of clothes we wear, what type of cars we drive. But most people are waiting 30 years in a play not to lose, setting money aside, hoping it's going to be okay 30 years from today, or play to win, I'll hustle, and then one day I'll sell it and then we'll have the money. And ultimately, because it's so far away, they neglect and they're not proper stewards of their finances. When we hand over our money and set it and forget it and say, this financial person's a genius, guess what? They're probably a genius salesperson, maybe not a financial genius. And so we shirk and abdicate responsibility because we think we don't have the time. When we think we don't have the time, guess what? That's just escapism, and we're busy back working, trying to make up for whatever else that we haven't accounted for in love in our life. So I feel like this is a little deep at times and even a little bit harsh when we look at the self-reflection, but I'm only sharing things that I've been in the trenches of myself and that I figured a way out. And that I'm even admitting I still have my moments. I still had 3.5 weeks ago, 2 nights in a row, I woke up at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. because I was stressed. We sold a home, bought a new home, had a little delay of our website coming out. I had really upset my partner by being an a-hole when I was stressed. My wife was stressed about the move. I was kind of isolated. I wasn't calling people. And I had 2 nights of unnecessary stress because I didn't get into co-creation and I didn't get into eliminating of escapism. I just went into, I should watch Friends in the middle of the night so I don't have to think for myself. Right. And so but at least it was 2 days rather than 2 years. So it doesn't mean that we're in a constant state of nirvana, always making perfect decisions. We still have lessons along the way. It's just, we learn to course correct. We learn to utilize and be vulnerable so other people can support us. And we learn to be better receivers. Like if you get anything from today, become a better receiver, ask for support, from the right people. Not from people that kick you while you're down or want to see you not do well, because there's people stuck in scarcity. There's some other people that want to be your biggest advocates and they feel like they're part of the process. Like people, when I'm on a streaming service, feel like, hey, I was part of that. I helped that happen. That's different than make me a bunch of money so I can retire. That's uninspiring. And yet that's what most people are playing the game of. So making money on the buy is you profit from day one. You're not waiting for 30 years.
So I want to speed bump a couple of things there. And one, please know that what Garrett isn't saying on co-creation is call others to commiserate with. Like the whole misery loves company. Be very, very mindful who you share your dreams with. Because a dream real quickly can be shot out of the air depending on who you're sharing it with. So I'm so grateful. I learned that really on in business, probably my second year in business, to be very careful and not only very careful, but somebody who's also going big, meaning like they're not just living in this little tiny little tunnel of a life. So be careful who you choose to co-create with. And that doesn't say every single value has to be in alignment. And I'm speaking for Garrett there, and maybe you agree with me or don't. Like, I think the idea of value alignment is really important, but like, you don't have to support Trump for us to work together.
Right. Like how many, that's the crazy thing about this world is like you and I, we could go and we would find things we disagree with, Barbara.
For sure.
But values pretty damn aligned.
Yes.
And the thing is, like, I'm not political. I think I love Mark Twain's statement about he says if voting mattered, they wouldn't let you do it. So I'm not really into the politics thing, because I mean, I just maybe it's arrogance, but I feel like 150 millionth doesn't matter enough for me to spend my time on, and I'm like, I'm political in my business. Like, I just want to be more valuable in my business. We probably don't have the exact same philosophy there, but I still love and adore you, and know you're doing so much good in the world. And like, maybe like some of my jokes are like, oh, that's a stupid joke, but it's not like you go, well, I'm not going to be Garrett's friend anymore. Cause I mean, hell, if they're like, I tell political jokes on both sides, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little easier to make fun of Biden right now. And even in Illinois, I got them to laugh at Biden jokes, which was really great. And even in California, they laughed at Biden jokes. So,
Nice. So
yeah,
there is
because
still humor.
never have we been like, hey, this country is like the biggest corporation in the world. Let's find an old person that's senile to run it. That'll solve everything.
Yay, because he's done so much good anyway.
But I also like to make fun of other politicians, whether it's on both sides. So it's fine.
You're an equal opportunity maker, funner.
Yeah.
Joker. So the other thing I really want to, and something I've observed this in Garrett and Rich, and that one day with them those of you who've been on since the beginning, it was $25,000 for one day with these two guys. And let me tell you, I have way more than, I don't even know how many X'd it. It's worth it. When you get an opportunity like that, take it for sure. And so the thing I want to talk about though for a second is, I can almost hear some of you thinking like, oh yeah, this sounds super great, Garrett and Barb, because you guys are already there. Like, okay, awesome, Garrett. Like, you haven't had to worry about money since 2008, but I'm not sure how I'm going to pay my mortgage next month. So I just want to like stop all of you for a second. Garrett, if you and Carrie lived the lifestyle of, I don't know, somebody like, let's just say a Grant Cardone, where you've got like a fleet of jets, and or Branson going to outer space or whatever, would there be a difference if there's that much expenditure?
Well, like, we've made more and less money from year to year since 2008, but our lifestyle hasn't changed. So there's this, like, the only thing that would make a big difference in my life right now would be flying private, which we used to own a Lance airplane that crashed. So for me to fly private, it has to be a jet. And I'm not quite at the place where I would spend that kind of money, especially like if I'm going to a comedy club making $6,000 and then paying 15 grand to fly, or 25 grand to fly private. It makes, the economics don't make sense, but that would be the last factor that would really enhance my lifestyle. But other than that, well, my lifestyle is probably better than those guys, just because I know the level of stress that they're under, and the amount of responsibility, and the number of people that are looking to them. And like, that's a lot more stress than what I face right now.
And so my point in all of this is this is why you have to know what you want, and to make sure you're running your race, and to make sure that you have your rules about marriage. I've recently had this awareness that I've been trying to be the mom that my sister and my mom are, which is a terrible fit for me. And it's created so much stress in my marriage and in my relationships with my children, because I'm not them. Like, they're perfect moms for the way they do it, but not for me. So it's so imperative that you know your own rules, that you know your own race. Like, I'm looking behind Garrett at the hotel room he's in. You don't see him in the big penthouse suite. It's not something that matters that much to him. And I'm not saying,
especially when my wife's not with me, what am I going to do? Like, this is like, what am I going to do here?
It doesn't matter, but I know many people, and probably all of you do too, that would only get the hotel room that's top of the line just because somebody else said they're a hotel snob. So it's just such a beautiful gift to give yourself, to know who you are and what you really want. Like, I'm not a hotel snob either. I don't really care. But something that Garrett said that has always stuck with me, and I think I heard you say it a long time ago, was riding in first class. Like, I crank work when I sit in first class. Like, it is unbelievable. Something just like happens in my writer's mind, and I crank work. So the first class ticket is for sure worth it to me. Plus, like, keeping myself small so somebody else doesn't touch me, I'm willing to pay for it. Now, that's something that matters to me. And I know it's something that matters to Garrett. It doesn't have to matter to you, but I'm just asking all of us to look at your finances and where is your money flowing in ways that doesn't matter to you, that it's causing you so much stress that you really think that you have to wait to the future to live a life of ease. And I know that was a really roundabout way to say it, but that's as good as I got.
Well, and here's the way to break that down. There's price, there's cost, and there's value. These are the three measures of worth. Price is what we pay, and the miser looks almost solely at that. Like, they don't value their time enough because they're willing to spend tons of time to lower the price. Cost takes into consideration the economics. So a first class ticket might be a higher price but lower cost because I've written books on a flight that have made me millions of dollars. And if I'm in coach trying to T-Rex it, I'm not going to write those books. It's going to delay, and it's, so price versus cost. And then value is just your overall feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment and enjoyment. Value-based spending is, you begin with value first, cost second, and price third. When we stick to price and price alone, well, we know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And there's just certain things that are worth extra. But if there's two cars I love the same and one's $10,000 less, I'm always going with the $10,000 less, because price is a consideration, just not the consideration. And I think that's really important. Now, someone also asked about the positive sides or the winning personas for the miser and high roller. Since I talked about we have the conservative and the planner, and we have the striver and the creator. So let's go. The miser's winning persona is the mindful manager. They're detail oriented, they're efficient, and they're just really good at improving things. They're instrumental for any organization that's looking to plug leaks, and they're looking to reduce waste. That's really what the mindful manager is great at. The high roller becomes the catalyst. The catalyst is a mover and shaker. They're a connector, and they're a visionary. They think and play big, and they show us how we can win together. And so if you find catalysts in your life, they're going to bring you a lot of business. They're going to tell everyone how great you are. They make the world go around. Matthew Loop was that for me to meet with Barbara. Barbara's been that for me to meet you, a catalyst. Like, you're one catalyst away from a whole new level of prosperity. Like, when I have a catalyst, the catalysts have my cell phone number. The catalysts get invited to do an immersion. So even though it was a big investment, I only do 10 immersions a year. So you have to kind of like pass the test of vision and me wanting to spend time with you to be invited to my cabin and go through what Barbara went through. But she's also a catalyst. So those are really important to understand, is the winning persona and the shadow persona. And that'll really, like, if it was like really difficult, bad times, then I might go to my original shadow persona of the miser. I might start cutting cable and apps, and I might start looking at our monthly expenditures. That would be a losing game long term, because I could spend the same amount of time thinking about value creation and vision and expansion, but that's and genetically how I kind of grew up. And then I feel like I'm breaking that for my family, that we're no longer going to be a family full of misers. I've even influenced my parents that way and everything. So those are really important. Someone knocked on my door here. It's probably like a cleaning crew.
Cleaning lady, come on in. So back up here, Sarah asked, what are your favorite ways to eliminate escapism? And I think Garrett referred to that with binge watching Friends, or and I'll let him speak to that. But I think one of the keys that he said about eliminating escapism and where to look, like, what are you doing to avoid pain? Is that an accurate way to look at how do we identify where we're trying to escape?
I put this on my body for this exact reason, escapism. So what this is a reminder that we can face any pain with love and compassion. On the other side is consciousness and connection. So I thought of like, what are the relationships that I have any crust with, that I have left in a place that's less than ideal? Where have I said something that's been hurtful? Where have I judged myself negatively? Like, these are the lists that you can start to create. And I just decided to have conversations, and almost all of those have been profound. I can only think of one conversation where I acknowledged where I had done something, like talked negatively about someone maybe 15 years ago, and apologized to her. And we have never had really a conversation since. But you know what? Maybe that was a favor, ultimately. So most of the time, and look, these are tough. Like, it's tough to have these conversations sometimes and be really direct and honest in these conversations. Because if we're having these conversations, like I have someone in my family that I wasn't really thrilled about the person they were dating, and they seemed less and less inspired. So I finally just decided to have the direct conversation with them more than once. And it actually helped me heal. They're with them. I get that they get to choose, but like, I spoke it, and rather than having it in my inner dialogue and actually complaining to my wife about it. And I was like, I'm not the person that determines love. I'm not the person that determines what everybody does. But at the same time, if I'm going to have this be a block or a wall, by speaking it in a loving way, I was able to continue forward with that relationship. And those aren't always easy conversations to have. I mean, I have two of those conversations right now that I'll be having in the next week, that I feel like there's a leak or a violation of trust. And these are conversations, I mean, I could see my ego being like, it'd be nice just to sweep under the rug and pretend it didn't happen. But then that starts to change the dynamic of who I am. I lose power. I have those leaks. I have this like occupying my mind. When we have negative thinking occupying our mind, it crowds out abundance. So what are those negative thoughts about yourself and others? And you can have this category called friends, friendly, and buddies. So friends are people you invite into your life. You say yes to their invitations anytime you can. Buddies are people that, you know, like maybe like you don't share your whole vision with, but they're nice enough, but they're not inspiring, but they're fun to be around. And then friendlies are people like that are negative or in scarcity or say negative things about you behind your back. Like, just love them from a distance. Like, don't have to have a fight with them. I used to try to take the moral high ground, and you got to understand this. And it's like, you know, the Bible says, you know, if you're fighting with a fool, you got to recognize you're a fool too. You know, it's very ad lib. That's not very eloquent. The Bible does a better job than I do of saying it. But I realized that. So I was like, cool, I can be friendly with them. Don't invite them to anything. Politely decline their invitations. Don't share important things in my life, but wish them the best and love them from afar, rather than get drawn into their drama, right? Rather than get drawn into the negativity. So I just now have more time for friends, more time to say yes, more time to have inspiring conversations, more time to do the things. And look, dealing with my escapisms, like, I'll give you one example. My very first like early mentor, we ended up having a business together, and he was really the one that brought soul purpose to my life. He's the one that I was using the term S-O-L-E. He was like, no, it's S-O-U-L. And so we started doing things together. And then we eventually got our egos where it was like, you're using soul purpose. No, I'm using, you know, like, and all this kind of stuff. And I reached out to him because I had a very big spiritual awakening in Sedona. And then he came to my comedy show. Then we've been writing music together. We've been just sharing the most profound things back and forth. Like, because I had to realize it was just a big ego thing. And I said, hey, like, if you learn anything of this, feel free to use it. I'm not the author of it. It was gifted to me anyway. And if they're at that certain frequency, then go ahead and share it, you know, and that has changed my life, rather than being protective and yeah, people have stolen my stuff before. Robert Kiyosaki wrote a thing called Shooting Sacred Cows 2 years after killing sacred cows. Mine's the 9 financial myths. His was the 8 financial lies. But rather than getting a legal battle, you know what I did? I got a hold of his team, went on his podcast 3 times, and they promoted me 3 times, and I made 6 figures together with them rather than fighting it. They acknowledged their wrongdoing, and I said, okay, well, it's flattering, and why don't you just make it up to me by doing some stuff with me? So that was a different approach to it that came from abundance.
Mimicry is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah.
So Rashay asked, vision is the wind, value is the way, dollars are the byproduct, and blank was the last one. Vision.
Prosperity becomes your state of being.
Oh, there you go. Oh, someone filled that in. Perfect. Okay. I find I'm impatient and feeling anxious that I'll miss my intuition's messages. Is what makes me miss them and potentially pushes me back into striver. Can I jump on that one and then you can do it? So
Go ahead.
here's what my thought is about it. Do you ever forget to make your heart beat? Anyone? Does anyone ever forget to make their heart beat? Never, right? And none of you got up this morning. You're like, white blood cells, I hope you did your job last night. It's always going. And remember that mind is always on offer. And so if it's important for us to know, God's not just going to leave us in the wilderness. It'll come up, and maybe it'll come up in different ways, or maybe somebody else will speak it. But just rest knowing that if you're supposed to know it, it'll come up again. So that's my impression. Garrett, what do you think?
All right, so you create a environment that I share things I never share, Barbara. So I'm going to share it.
Okay.
There's divine will and there's free will. And I believe we all have this path, the divine path that, and this is, we're going to walk it eventually. And whether it's this lifetime or another, and anytime we choose our free will over the divine will, which we can do, it's just a detour. And those detours could be shorter or longer. But see, the reason I don't feel that we always listen to our intuition is it's inconvenient. It's uncomfortable. I have a dream one night, and it came to me in a dream to do this one-man show that Barbara's seen. And I just woke up, turned to my wife. I'm like, I'm going to do a one-man show. She's like, what's that? I told her, she's like, cool. I didn't know what it was. And now she thinks it's the best thing that I've ever done. Like, she's the biggest advocate for it. And to be a steward, it meant I called, Bo Eaton, who had done a one-man show, Michael Port, who's written a bunch of New York Times bestsellers and is a great coach and had been an actor. And now I'm working with Larry Moss, who worked with DiCaprio in some movies. Like, I did the work after, but that was a one-man show. Comedy came to me in a meditation. It's like, this is a way to reach people in a way you've never reached them before. They are going to remember 3 times more. It's going to impact more people. It was like, okay, not convenient, because I know this thing that I've been doing. Has been working with Wealth Factory and all this. And it's like so that intuition isn't always convenient. And that's part of the reason we don't listen. And it's because we don't have enough time to listen, because we have a podcast on in the background, or we're in a conversation, or the TV's on, or the radio's on, or or always noise. And so my wife meditates for 2.5 hours a day. That's a lot of receiving, and that's a lot of listening. She's still finding ways of her purpose. Like, Barbara had her come speak years ago, and then we just met with a woman in Chicago who gets about 1 million Facebook views a day. And her and Carrie totally hit it off. And it was in a way that we weren't expecting. It was me with my financial content being a provider, but then it ended up being like brain health and all the stuff my wife has done for our kids. And they just went on this, I just sat back and watched it. It wasn't something that just happened overnight. It happened through severe, painful moments in our life, and trying to be an advocate for our kids, and Carrie being uncomfortable to go speak at Barbara's event, but doing it anyway because it could make a difference. And then these breadcrumbs start to lead to something. But a lot of times we want the breadcrumbs to be full pieces of bread. And then we're like, I don't know what my purpose is. Everybody else, my wife one day is like, God always talks to you, doesn't talk to me. And then it's been, just in acknowledging that, it's crazy what's opened up for her. So it's okay to say what is in the moment, even if it's not true, because when you speak it to someone else who's at a high level of vibration, you start to create the possibility of co-creation. But listening to intuition, for me, it's been inconvenient and blissful. That's the combination. It's been game-changing and difficult, but rewarding. It's, and sometimes it's hard to trust in that. Honestly, to trust in God sometimes is hard for me, because I'm like, what does this mean? What will it look like? Where will this lead me? What are the dangers? And it's hard to just be like, come on, it's divine will, it'll be fine. But it will, and these even little things, like the day of my comedy special that Barbara came to, I had this moment of prayer where it was like, hey, make the mistakes tonight. It's part of the process. People need to see just how human it is. And guess what? The mistakes were the funniest part of the show, the most human and connected part of the show. Departing from the show and talking about actual stories made the special, because it was a spiritual moment that morning in acupuncture that gave me those insights, and I followed it. And guess what? It turned out. And when I said the comedy tour, like, I don't know, Spirit was like, hey, you're going to be fine. People are going to show up. And I'm like, but weeks before, when I haven't even promoted, it was hard to believe, but then I watch it. So I just keep seeing the evidence when I follow intuition of these miracles that occur and show up, like the universe and God's conspiring for me. But when I'm in the detour, everything's effort and it's struggle and it's lack of fulfillment. Even if there's money behind it, it's like detour, when are you going to come back to the path of your divine nature of who you are?
I love that. And some of you have heard me talk about my conversation with Carrie. Actually, she and I were FaceTiming when you were at Wildman. And we were, so gosh, this must have been, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. And she was talking to me about her meditation practice and that she does it for 2.5 hours. And I remember just sitting there going, what? Like, how do you get anything done? And she looked at me like I had 30 heads. She's like, it's the only way I can get things done, because I figure out my day before it even starts. And something clicked. I mean, it didn't make sense then. And I think this is part of intuition, is that when we're present, everything may not make sense right now, like the breadcrumbs. But if we keep leaning in and we keep looking, it all makes sense eventually. It's kind of like Garrett going to Italy. He didn't say, hey, Carrie, let's go to Italy tomorrow. He said 5 years. 5 years. Let's plan for it. Let's get excited about it. And I'm totally guilty of this, of like, oh, I get one idea, it's got to happen tomorrow. And the more I quiet my thinking, and whether it's spend an extra 5 minutes in the shower. I don't know what's so divine about that water, but there is something, maybe it's like no one is supposed to bother you when you're in the shower, or a bathtub or whatever. But remember, God speaks if we listen. So if all we're doing is talking, he's a gentleman. He's not going to interrupt. So if you're not creating that space for him to speak, and it's not like on, okay, God, like we've got 10 minutes. What do you got? We don't know. Like he says he's always there, but there's going to be a perfect time when he does speak. Sarah asked, I've been told over and over again, I should do comedy. It always creates a spark in me. Any tips on where to start? And I said, she's already doing it. Like she's a comedian just in and of herself. And, you know, I
told her to schedule an open mic and gave her the name of the person that I do comedy with. So
cool.
I said
Thank
that
you.
privately just now. So, but schedule an open mic. That's always makes it real. And invite your friends so you can't back out.
And they'll think you're funny just because you're funny.
And when they're not, and when you're really terrible, like I was in 2005, then everybody's laughing at you. And it's still giving them entertainment.
So it still works. All right, so I'm going to do a couple of these and then we'll go into questions. Just all of you remember that those who are on today, you get on a wheel and we're giving away 3 tickets to the American Ream Tour, Garrett's comedy show, as well as I'm giving away 2 spots to my Mindset Mastermind, my Mindset Masterclass that Michael Neal is joining us for, the very first one. I'm gonna take a bathroom break while you answer. Okay, sounds good. I would love to start getting into meditation, but not sure where to start. You know, Sarah, something I really love about the community of Rich and Garrett and Demi and even Michael Neal is that I always thought that meditation had to be like I'm sitting cross-legged, which is kind of almost painful. And, you know, my hands are supposed to be a special way. And like all of these things are supposed to happen. And meditation really and truly is just slowing down and being in a place where there's no noise. Like you can have noise, but it's really like the noise in your head. And so I think that the biggest thing about meditation is learning how to quiet your thinking, which isn't something you have to do. It's just an awareness. Like when I stop talking, and for me, it's just in the shower or the bathtub or out on a walk, as a thought comes in, I just thank it for being there and say goodbye until I'm in that space of no thought. And I did a meditation actually when I was at Wolf Factory, on the Soul Purpose Leadership Team. And this was something that really helped me. And Sarah Perry's really good at this. Sarah, maybe you could drop in there some breathing exercises. So we did some breathing exercises, which really just help quiet everything. And then Demi walked us through a meditation. And the thing that really helped me the most was in the meditation, she encouraged us to be the observer of ourselves, to like come out and look and act as if you are watching yourself. And that was the first time, honestly, I had any kind of like a vision and meditation. It was really so beautiful. I'll share it with all of you. It was a vision of like Jesus just standing there with his arms out, and there was no one there, and his arms were just out. And what it really said to me was, just show up. You don't have to serve anyone when you're here. And even though I was on the leadership team and there was certain responsibilities and expectations, it was really just, we can just show up and be. And just the very fact of being and being grounded and coming from that complete state of love and peace and joy is so magnetic. And really and truly, that's what holds space for other people. And so, that's part of leadership. So Rich Christensen taught me that leaders cast vision, create culture, hold accountable. And the last element of that is hold space. We think that leader is the person who does all of the talking. And that's not really true, because you know what? Like, each one of us has the best leader for ourselves inside. Danny's best leader is inside Danny. Wendy's best leader is inside Wendy. My best leader is inside me. And so as leader and stepping into leadership, the more grounded that we are, the better we show up for other people, and they'll quote unquote get more from being in your presence than saying a million things. So let's see. It's not letting it go, it's letting it be. Don't push it away, but observe it instead. Yeah. And if it's something that brings you joy to think about, by all means. It's not anything that you really have to do. It's just being aware. It's just being aware that, remember, thoughts, we have 12,000 to 60,000 a day. Thoughts, like, they're going to come and go, like the ocean, it comes and goes, like a breeze, it comes and goes. These leaves, they come and go. They're just thoughts. And I love something that Garrett says, that I wrote in my special book, that words cast spells. So be mindful, not beat yourself up, but be mindful of the words that come from your thinking out through your mouth. Danny Stutzel is amazing with breathing techniques. Beautiful. And if it's of interest to everyone, I'll invite Danny sometime on a Wednesday mastermind to take us all through some breathing techniques. And Sarah, I'll throw out the invitation to you as well. Everyone always says yes in the boot camp for helping each other. So there you go, Danny and Sarah, I'll get with both of you and we'll have 2 separate dates. So let's see. So Garrett, let's, any last minute words you want to have on wrapping up what we've started with, and then we'll go through some of these questions.
Soul purpose is key. Create a game worth winning. Spend the time working on vision, which is different than other work because it's quiet time, it's hobbies, so that you can have that intuition come through. Even when you're trying to make ends meet, then it's about being really strategic, and you can just like do an inventory of your activities. What's worth doing, what's not worth doing, what's giving you energy, what's draining your energy, like focus instead of diversifying. Like, sometimes we have to be abundant enough to say no to create the space for the best things. And when we're addicted to yes, it crowds out those opportunities, because then we're not even able to receive it because we're so exhausted. So be careful with who you're sharing your vision with. Find those that'll support you. Use the co-creation, elimination, delegation, and collaboration methodology. And, there's a lot of information in a short period of time. I get it's very philosophical, but I can give you all the strategies and I can give you resources for strategies. But the problem is strategies without philosophy lead to temporary gains, temporary results.
So here's one last thing I want you to speak to before we do questions. Okay, Garrett, it's easy for you. You have a wife at home who takes care of everything. Okay, Garrett, it's easy for you. It's always so interesting how we think it's easier for other people, right? It's easy for you. You have someone who supports you. You have someone who's interested in the higher vibrational things. You have it all. It's easy for you. I don't have a supportive spouse. I don't have that. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, first off, I'm a 4th generation coal miner's son. Like my great grandfather, my grandfathers, my dad, coal miners in a small town, you know, originally Dragerton, Utah, then East Carbon, Utah, then Price, Utah, places you probably never heard of, with very few people. My family wasn't financially savvy, but they were loving. So I'll give them that. My wife and I had 2 years from years 7 and 9 that like we fought a lot. She wasn't overly supportive of my career because I was never spending enough time at home. I was overextended in real estate and I was deep in debt because of those mistakes and everything that I was doing at that time. And we had to work through that. I had to learn painful lessons, you know, with my finances to really understand this in a compassionate, connected, sympathetic, empathetic level. And like, if I showed you the very first time I ever recorded myself speaking, it was atrociously bad. Roberto Monaco filmed it and it was painful to watch back. Like, I didn't just show up and like was a good speaker. It took time. I got made fun of saying, just because you're intense, Garrett, doesn't mean you're saying anything worthwhile. Or, hey, you know, just yelling doesn't mean it's good. So those are some of my early feedback components. This is a game of course corrections. This is a game of you know, having moments of doubt and despair, and then moments of elation and excitement. It's not something that happens necessarily overnight. It's habitual. And it's a commitment. And I feel like we're tested along the way. So yeah, we have a really good situation right now. But at the same time, I've spent 400 grand on a comedy special that has just barely getting ready to get promoted. But I believe in investing in myself. I mean, yeah, no one's ever done it the way that we've done it before. I've only been doing comedy since August of 2017, and it was a half-assed hobby for a couple of years, but I still use co-creation, elimination, delegation, and collaboration. And so I'm doing it in the middle of COVID. I'm doing it with a new company. I don't, you know, like I get like my problems are different now, but they weren't that different when I started, from people who are, you know, like it was hard as hell. I was borrowing money to pay payroll in 2008. I was hemorrhaging cash at the rate of $60-some thousand a month for all the real estate properties I held when my partners went bankrupt and I inherited them. I had partners die in a plane crash just 2 years before that. I had to deal with cleaning up that mess for years afterwards. And none of this is a victim story. It's a victor story of I found a way through. You can be resourceful. You can be resourceful. And one of the escapisms people have is money. They spend it and don't look at it. They save it and don't think about it. They complain about it. They feel like they don't have luck with it. Like, I have a whole huge segment in my comedy show about this, you know, because it's just a place where most people are embarrassed about where they're at. They should be further along. Like, look, man, most of the world thinks I probably have more money than I do. I once had someone ask me if I was a billionaire. I am far from that in financial terms, but probably happier than all the other billionaires in the world. So like, I'm content with that. I'm cool with that. Like, if that's in the cards, it's in the cards. And if it's not, it's not. It doesn't really matter, because Barbara brought it up. It doesn't infringe or impact my lifestyle. Like, it actually would be negative in a lot of ways to get that level of attention, you know. And I feel like now that I'm going to have that attention in comedy, it took me years to prepare that I wouldn't be an asshole when that all happens. So I'm thankful that it kind of happens in the timing that it does. So yeah.
Your sons think that, I love the story about, I don't remember which of your sons said something about we're rich, and you're like, well, I know I am. Yeah, I
don't know about you. That's yet to be determined. Like, you know, you get no inheritance. There's no entitlements here.
That was so funny. All right, so one more story from you that I love, when you won the test drive and the Lamborghini, and I don't remember which of your sons was with you for that, but what did you, do you remember the story I'm talking about?
Well, look, I donated some money to a charitable cause, and so we got to be in this like $750,000 Lamborghini where we were going to drive from Vancouver to Whistler. And I actually brought both of my kids and my wife with me, because we all, my wife loves Vancouver, and so I just remember when they started the car, it scared the hell out of my sons, because it's so loud. But then they wanted to drive it forever. And then he's like, my youngest is like, I want a car like this. I'm like, well, you better start getting your vision together, because this isn't just something that gets given to you or handed to you. And so I don't know if that's a part of the story that you wanted me to tell, but it was kind of cool to take him on a drive like that, so that they could have some aspiration towards like, oh, like people do live this way. Like this is a possibility. I'm not really a car guy, so it's like, it doesn't matter to me. I like my truck. But my youngest is motivated by that. So as long as he's got a compelling vision, that's a possibility for him. And it's more possible because he sat in it, because he wrote in it, because it created a conversation around it. And I'm not here to judge, like if someone drives that car good or bad, like it doesn't matter. Like it's a car. And like if they earn that money and they have that level of profit, then more power to them. I drove a Bentley for a while, and I had people say, well, don't you feel bad you're not giving that money to charity? I'm like, first off, that's scarcity because you believe I'm not giving money. And second, you're now dictating morality to how I spend my money, which I'm doing good just by the fact that I'm earning through serving others and solving problems, whether I ever give money to charity or not. And that's a weird, notion a lot of people get, like, oh, if you have a lot, you should give a lot. Well, you have a lot of times because you have given a lot. And as soon as you start dictating how people should spend their money or time, you're now actually a tyrant. You're the same as a dictator. Maybe you're a benevolent dictator. I don't know that there's many of them out there, but that's the same type of shitty thinking that led to some of the most destructive patterns in our entire planet, because people said, here's how you should think. And I like that people get to be individual thinkers and have their own ways and their own preferences. I believe in value-based spending. Like, what do you enjoy spending money on? There's things I spend money on around coffee that are extravagant and ridiculous to most of the world, but not to my wife and I. Like at first she thought it was ridiculous, but now she enjoys the taste of the cup. And so she doesn't care that the grinder's more quiet, but 3 times the price, and grinds the beans a little bit better, so it tastes better when it comes through my beautiful Alex Duetto. Like, yeah, I geek out about it, but that's my value-based spending. So don't feel guilty when you spend money on things that you really love and enjoy, because if you don't, then you're back into sacrifice, doing things for everyone's happiness at the expense of your own. Seemingly successful but unhappy is a front that works until it doesn't. And in my formula, not mine, but whatever formula that I was given, it's self first, then it's family, then it's tribe, then it's community, then it's the world. So take care of yourself, because if you don't have much to give. Then take care of your family, because if you put your tribe ahead of your family, that family is not going to last, and then put your tribe ahead of your community, because your tribe becomes part of how you serve the community. But if you skip a step, like I hear people all the time say they want to change the world, but they haven't even taken care of themselves. The only saving that you need to do is to save yourself. The rest of it will take care of itself. I believe, the name of my play is called Already Won, WON. But it also has that like already won, ONE, that we're all connected. We all have a spirit. We all come from the same place. We're going to the same place, hopefully. And with that in mind, like the only way we don't win is by not accepting who we are. Like, and if we look at everything instead of as a failure, as a lesson, and it's happening for us, not to us. And there's some horrible things that happen that are really hard to accept that with. But if you do, you'll learn the lesson sooner. You'll be more in tune with your soul purpose, and you'll have a happier life.
Bada boom, bada bang. Yes. I had something really profound to say, but I forgot it. So
because I kept going and going.
We'll leave it at that. And the part of the story too, the Vancouver, was you said you'll have to provide a lot of value in this world to drive a car like that. And I just love what it did say to him of, this is totally within your realm.
And by the way, he
This
just
is
started his
how,
first business. 13 started his first business. I was 15. He's now buying sneakers and then going to resell those sneakers because they're in limited supply, and he has a passion for it. So I had nothing to do with it, and I'm so proud. I'm so excited because I love that I didn't really have. The only thing I had to do with it is living by example, but I didn't give him the business idea or tell him how to run the business. And he came up with this idea. Well, I've been on the road for comedy, and my wife is excited as well. It's, you know, we're really, it's really cool to see.
awesome. All right, so let's get to, so number one, where does one even begin to make sense of student loans or other debts?
We have a lot of really cool resources, like, you know, like using a cash flow index, learning your cost of money, which is what is your highest rate of return that you can earn sustainably versus what's the highest interest rate that you pay to borrow money, because you always pay interest whether you borrow and pay someone or whether you pay cash and lose the right to earn interest. And so the fastest way is find out what your cost of money is. And if a loan's higher than what you could earn, you pay down the loan as fast as possible. If it's lower than what you earn, and then you pay it all off at once. So it keeps control of your money. So that's just the basic kind of formula overall. Yeah, I'm doing this 2-day workshop where you've been to part of that, where I'm really spending an entire session dedicated just to how to handle those things. But there's the gist of it right there.
And to all of you, some of you were asking about links to American Ream and even this 2-day workshop. So be watching your emails. If you're not getting them from me, it's because you haven't white labeled my email address, but you've been getting them from me for this event specifically. So you're going to have to watch for those emails, and you'll see how to go to the 2-day event. Just like a quick little plug for Wealth Factory too. Like when I started as a client with the Wealth Factory, I remember being so embarrassed to, I was working with Wade and Brandon, and I was so embarrassed to tell them about our boat, because our boat was like ridiculously expensive, and neither one of them could even fathom why would, like, Barb, like, this is something that you love, like, let's just have it make sense. And I was like, really? Like, I don't have to sell it, I'm not a bad person for owning it? They're like, no. And it was just such a, like, a weight of relief. So for all of you, or even like, I remember my first discussion with Wade, I'm like, oh yeah, I know I need to get rid of my insurance. And he's like, what? Like, where are you hearing that from? And then didn't, like, prove me wrong, but like walked me through, like, help me see your perspective. And I know Wade's not there full time anymore, but just encourage all of you, like, the Wealth Factory is a totally different experience, I promise you. And some of you, well, I guess maybe only Sarah met David Gowans, who I met him the very first time I was at the Wealth Factory, and still just absolutely love that guy. And so Garrett has amazing people around him and who are on his team. And, you know, that was something that Sarah and I talked a lot about after being there. Like, she didn't know a lot of people, and I give her tons of credit. She, like, you know, went out and talked to people, to those who were there. And we were both just like, you know, like, these extremely wealthy, successful people, they want the same things that we do, connection. They have the same assets that we do, love. And that's one thing that I've always experienced at the Wealth Factory events is, it's not about who's who and what's what and who's got what. It's so much about relationship. And that's kudos to Garrett. Like, your brand, all of us, our brand follows who we are. And so Garrett's brand and what he has built definitely follows who he is as well. So the next one is, are the promises of loan forgiveness through nonprofits legit? Are they a solid pathway to wealth?
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do it. Unless you're totally passionate about that nonprofit, it's minimum wage level stuff. So yes, you can do it. I would recommend against it most of the time, unless it's such an aligned nonprofit for you.
So again, like, if this is a pathway you were looking at, like, just slow your roll for a minute and see if you're aligned with not just the result, but the pathway of getting there. I love that. Where and what should I do with my money? Should I invest, buy real estate, hold on to it, keep cash, or put it in the bank?
Well, this is the easy answer because this is time to increase your financial literacy. Like pick an asset class, one asset class that you can learn more about. Might be your business. It might be real estate if you're going to treat it like a business and love doing that work, or acquiring a business, or crypto, but like one thing. Focus, don't diversify, and learn how to answer that question for yourself. If you can't answer it for yourself, you're not ready to invest. You're now going on someone else's investor DNA, what they know, what they're good at. And now you're kind of copycatting and hoping that they're right, but you don't know enough about it. So risk is in the investor, not the investment. So become a better investor.
That's so funny. I just typed that before you said it.
And the key is really about plug your financial leaks first. Save on tax, save on interest, save on non-performing investment fees, save on duplicate coverages and costs for insurance. Build an automated system to start automatically capturing that wealth and putting it in your pocket and building a peace of mind fund. So you have at least 6 months of expenses set aside. Those are the fundamentals first before you invest. And then make sure you've invested in yourself and your business and in your stability before you speculate.
Love it. Number 4 is when you feel like there is never any extra money left over any month, how do you get started and what's the best method to start? Plain savings account until it hurts a certain amount, or what do I do?
Yeah, just a regular savings account is great. And you start with restructuring your loans, renegotiating your interest rates. You know, if you've got cash that's earning less than you're paying on your loans, you pay off a loan. If you've got money that's sitting there doing nothing in a retirement plan, you consider rolling that over, paying off loans to free up your cash flow, or investing that back into your skill set so you can expand your cash flow and increase what you're up to. You know, it's can you go back and save tax because you overpaid tax in the last 3 years and get that money back in? Look at R&D credits, look at, you know, current year tax strategies, because that's where we can start to find money to help us get ahead. If you're just living paycheck to paycheck and month to month and week to week, is we've got to get more efficient and more savvy. And if the, you know, and then take that money and look at ways you can add more value and make more money, because that's how you get out of the trap. When you're just earning enough to pay for things and then you're back on that hamster wheel, efficiency might mean, okay, but now we have something, let's invest it in something that's going to increase cash flow, increase capacity. Like in comedy, I mean, I'm investing in my coach, I'm investing in my team, I'm investing in things that help me get that out there, versus investing in a mutual fund that I know nothing about, versus investing in real estate that I care nothing about, versus investing it into a business that's not related to anything I care about or not part of my vision, or versus, you know, like, so a lot of people get derailed and they go invest in things outside of who they are. And that's another detour versus investing in who they are. You know, when I first started speaking, I hired Roberto Monaco, then Jonathan Sprinkles, then Teresa Eastler, then Michael Port. Like I treated it as I've got to go to things to improve my communication skills. And then in writing, you know, the same thing. And in comedy. So like, I look at investments in intellectual property as my key investments, not as investments in other corporations I don't care about.
How much reserves should I have? When you have abundance, what short-term and long-term investments are ideal? And how much should I be reinvesting in my own business?
6 months of personal expenses set aside is really good for reserves that you could work up to. You can have some of that just in a savings account. Some of that can be in a cash value of overfunded whole life insurance with a mutual company. The question is not how much should you invest into yourself. The question is how effective are the investments in yourself where you're still getting a good return on that. You know, if I would have taken 8 speaking courses in the same year for 8 different instructors, that's diminishing returns. Too much to implement all at once, not enough capacity. So I've always said 40,000 is a minimum that I would invest in myself every year, but there's no limit to the upside as long as it's still effective. And I look at it as 4 types of expenses: destructive expenses to eliminate, which are borrowing to go into debt and not having an asset attached to it; lifestyle, which is just quality of life and the basics of living every day; protective expenses, asset protection, insurances, enough cash on hand, those kind of things. And then productive expenses. I put in $1, more than $1 comes out. Let's keep doing that as long as that's effective. And I do that with ads. I do that with, but there's a certain point where there's a diminishing return. That there's like only so much time. There's only so much commitment. There's only so much gain. And I look for where am I going to get the exponential gain up front? And then how do I maintain that or continue to have improvement versus immersion as time goes on? And that frees up my time in other areas.
So this person said the investment DNA sounds fun. Is there a free quiz for the investor DNA? Or
There's
is that
not a free quiz. I think if you get Killing Sacred Cows, which I think I have a download that you can get for free. I'll see if I can type it in properly this time.
Oh yeah, it's also at but you know what, that could just be one of the assets at the free flow that I have. I can also get with Trisha about free assets that are available and other stuff.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the question then goes on to investing, E-Trade, children's college funds, 401ks, employee matches, tax strategy, how to manage. Hey, Garrett, let's speed bump right there for just a half a second. I've talked to like one-on-one with almost 800 chiropractors since April of 2017 on Zoom or the phone for boot camp. And one of the biggest things that I hear parents say is, I have to save more money to pay for my kids' education. Can you speak to that for a minute? Like, I personally never had that philosophy. My philosophy instead was to provide opportunities for my children to work to pay for their own education. And now post undergraduate, I'm helping them in different ways. What is just your philosophy? And everyone just like, this is just our philosophy, is like, take it for what it's worth.
So look, I love this sentiment because it's a very caring sentiment, for sure. But whether you want to pay for kids' college or not, my philosophy always, you maximize your wealth and don't fragment it. When we go, oh, there's this Coverdale plan or a 529 plan, and we start siphoning off our money and putting it in these other things because there's tax incentives if they go to college, now the conversations is got to go to college, right? And it's maybe that's may or may not be the best situation. If I decide to help my kids pay for college, it would be through a matching program or something like that, or maybe even buying an asset that they manage and I pay them for managing that asset, and it's something that recoups the expense. Like I know Rich Christensen did that with his kids. They managed the apartment complexes. He paid them for that. Super tax efficient for him, tax efficient for them. They learned what it was like to be a landlord, which is, not an easy walk. They learn all those skills, and then that helps them pay for college. And he makes them pay for college on their own, although you could tell he's got a hand in it. Like when you start fragmenting it into these plans, A, you're overly reliant on the stock market. B, they're riddled with tons of fees that most people don't recognize. They're usually higher than even 401ks. And C, you're going to slow down your wealth plan by doing it. So maximize your wealth, plug your financial leaks, don't overpay tax, interest, don't overpay for non-performing fees on investments or duplicate coverages or costs or that kind of improper structure with insurances. That money comes into your life, maximize it. And if you choose to utilize some of that, then it's a choice versus I already set it aside and that money's just gone when they're finished with school. Because I watch people, the market's been on a pretty big run. What if that goes down when your kids are in school? Now all of a sudden you're like, oh, great, you spent all this time saving and it's ineffective, or they don't go to the school, or they don't go to school, and now all of a sudden you got this money in there and all the tax benefit wasn't really like, I don't like putting my money in the government's hands. I don't have the government tell me what the rules are. I like to keep my money more private. I like to keep it in a place where I have a lot more control. And then I have options if I choose to support, not that I am now a one-dimensional piece with this fragment.
So I want to honor your time.
Yeah.
Garrett's got to jump. There are two other questions. Would it be all right if I just email them to you and you can respond to the person as it? So I want to open up the line, and here's what I'd like everyone to do that's left on is just unmute yourself and show Garrett some gratitude. He's going to jump, but don't leave. I have a really special video clip. It's 5 minutes and I think 9 seconds of Garrett You're not going to want to miss it. So unmute yourselves and just
Thanks,
show them the
everyone.
love.
How you doing, Garrett?
Hey.
Hey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. I've been
Awesome.
listening to you all day.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. That was great. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Hope
All
to
right.
see you on the comedy tour. Barbara, let
Yes,
me know to come.
absolutely. Have a great day.
Yeah. Take care.
All right. All right. So I want to show this to all of you. Pretty amazing, right? Like someone said, awesome birthday present, Dr. Rowe. Oh, you're so welcome. Okay. So hold tight for just a second here. Oh, I had it queued up a second ago. All right, just wait. Yep, here it is. Okay. Danny, can you see it?
You get one chance at a life you love, and just like that, it's done. See, people are out there, they're struggling, they're hustling, they're doing whatever it takes to build a legacy, but they never actually get the time to sit back and live their legacy. But this is more intentionally going to be about how you generate more cash flow without having to work harder, without having to take more risk, without having to cut back. Money with no philosophy is a surefire way to destruction. The long haul sounds like pushing like a wheelbarrow full of cinder blocks up a hill for the rest of my life. I don't want to be in it for the long haul unless it's something I'm passionate and that delivers purpose. When would you want to retire from creating value for people and developing relationships and making a difference? Never. Most people retire because they grew up in a town like I grew up in where they're coal miners. When you're a coal miner, retirement is a great idea. Most of the financial world unfortunately talks about how people can scrimp and save and sacrifice and budget, and then they come to you as a business owner where you're really good at making money, and they try to separate you from that money in a retirement plan that isn't going to save anyone taxes. We're about to enter a crazy time in the economy, but those people that have knowledge, that learn to be better investors, that invite communities and bring them along with them, that get educated and invest in themselves, and they go out there and they focus on cash flow rather than accumulation, return rather than risk, are going to be the leaders of the future. And the question is, are you ready to take on that challenge and be that leader for your community? It's my purpose, my mission, my mantra to show people how to build a life that they love and create a legacy that lasts, while enhancing and embracing their quality of life along the way and even being more productive today. That's what I call win, then play. Money's not the only measure of wealth. Value creation is, and dollars follow value. See, budgeting sucks primarily because budgeting creates a scarcity mindset. It's about reductionist thinking, and no one shrinks their way to wealth. That's the bottom line. No one shrinks their way to wealth. Wealth is... You can clap down. Unexpected but appreciated. Part of the problem why people lose so much money is they treat their money like a part-time venture instead of treating it like a business. Risk isn't in the investment, it's in you as the investor. How do you relate to the investment? So the question is, how do you become a better investor? When people say, what should I invest in? You're not ready to invest if you're asking that question, because what's risky for me might not be risky for Jason, and vice versa. Because he understands single family at a different level than I do, has a network, has a business, has experience, and all those kind of things. So if someone says real estate's a good investment, maybe, maybe not. Who are you and what type of real estate are we talking about? I had people from Canada that heard me speak. They saved $100,000. It was their team that did it. They just used the framework, right? I've had people in the UK say, oh, this works, but that doesn't. I know it's different for everyone, but the framework works. It simplifies a complex, usually boring topic. Some people love it. Most people don't. So I grew my hair long so you can enjoy it more. It's just for you. Potential stored is useless to the world. Potential realized is what we would call production. Potential realized is production. The way you realize your potential is to create value for others. That's the bridge. I want to share with you how a money problem is never really a money problem. It's merely a symptom. See, there's a formula where you can solve this problem more easily. Wealth is the way that you live and how your values, philosophies, and work can create a lasting legacy that you'll be remembered by. Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, you can't get further ahead? See, hard work with the wrong philosophy still equals limited results, and it could lead to a life of frustration. What about having time for purpose, for passion, for vision, all while maintaining and improving your quality of life? Oh, this must be special. You're here. So if you want to keep a lot more of what you make, profit without spending a single cent, and really spend time with those that you love, doing the things that you love, let's chat.
Garrett, Gunderson,
Oh, that's me. Build the life you love.
Okay, pretty cool. So let me just open it up. What are your thoughts? Like, what's coming up for you? I'm gonna take comments for let me just see my clock here for a second. 10 minutes. Your questions, your comments. I do want to let you know a couple of things. Yes, be watching your emails. So I'll be giving away 3 American Ream tickets. And I'm also giving away 2 memberships into the next Mindset Masterclass. So if you saw on there, Garrett spoke at Genius Network, which is one of Michael Neal's companies. And so that Mindset Masterclass is November the 9th. You know, I've been chanting the like get your mindset right for a long time. And now I actually understand it. It's so important to really grasp what are those principles of mind, thought, and consciousness, and how do we use them, and how do we use them to our advantage? They're always at play. And once you can understand it, it really just frees up so much. And that's part of Garrett's story we didn't really get into today because we were talking about money more so, but how that has been transformational for him as well, to go from, you know, miser to the striver and blah, 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 blah. So I'll be quiet. Who you just have to like unmute yourself or raise your hand so that I can call on you, and then we won't have. Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
Hey, so I just always love like being near Garrett or listening to him or just like absorbing his energy, because I think he's such an incredible light. And I think what he's doing with bringing comedy and to his world is like genius. So having seen his show, it really is just incredible. And the opportunity to even like give him a hug and stand there with him, like take it for sure. And thank you so much for the opportunity to do that. That was really neat.
Yeah.
I love, like, one thing I just kept thinking of is like, I love that it always boils down to that soul purpose concept. Like even plugging financial leaks is the same thing as eliminating escapism, like plugging leaks in your soul and where your soul spends its time and like what's keeping you from your vision and your purpose. And one thing that was so interesting to me is I started to think, if it's really as simple but as complex as like knowing your soul purpose and having your vision and all of that, like where do we get so caught up? And you and I have talked about this a lot, is it's just in that strategy. And but it's so funny because everyone's like, then I'll get a coach and they'll teach me the strategy. But like the best coaches do not teach you the strategy, because the strategy is literally the questions. Most of those are answered in Garrett's book and like in the free stuff that he offers in there. And it's so funny because we all like get so stuck on it. And I know I've been like even just in a little bit of that scarcity mindset lately. And I didn't really see it as clearly until he coached something like that greater realization. than I would have had otherwise. And I guess I just didn't really have a question as much as I just wanted to share that perspective, and like that like having people who can reframe how you're looking at things and take you back to your soul purpose and widen your trajectory is like really what you need.
Absolutely. And thanks for the honor of doing private coaching with you. We had what an incredible experience it's been, and just like so much applause to you and love for you for, and it's not the hard work, it's just being willing to be courageous to look and see what's there. And Sarah brings up a really good point. If there was a strategy that worked, we would all be doing it. If there was really a formula, like one to be successful, I wouldn't have like hundreds of books over there that talk about success. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the real plan is inside. Now, that doesn't mean like, hey, here's systems to follow in your practice. Hey, here's this investor DNA to know yourself better. Hey, like these are great ways to hire people. That's not what I'm talking about. But oftentimes this is what happens. How we think about what stops us determines where we go looking for the solution. Let me say it again. How we think and what we think about what stops us determines where we go looking for the solution. So if we really don't know what stops us, we'll likely run in the same patterns and places that we've looked before. We'll run back to, oh, it's got to be this. It's got to be I'm married to the wrong person. That has got to be it. I'm for sure in the wrong city. And if we really think that's what's stopping us, we'll then move all over the place, or we'll keep changing direction or whatever. Because the truth is, you already know inside. And some of you have heard me say this. I'm 120 pounds with a lot of extra, but I'm already there. I'm already at 120 pounds. And our thinking gets to be the same way. The answers in your life are quite similar. The answers are already there. It's just there's all kinds of extra stuff on top of it that you haven't figured out how to, like go like this and get through to the bottom. Or some of you who do private coaching with me, you've heard me say it's like scuba diving, and you're looking to see the brilliance of God's creation under the water, but you just keep like throwing sand up. And sometimes we throw sand up and we're swimming in the area where there's sharks. That's super scary. So how can we see if we're in danger? How can we see all the brilliance? Let the sand settle. And I gotta tell you, like, I've missed the mark and telling you for years, go harder, go faster. You can do that. And I have amazing results, and so do you, from harder and faster. It's just there's a better way. And that's really what we were talking about today. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Lots of crazy notes, a closer look at vision and contemplation has had. Beautiful. Okay, who else? Who else? So Matt, like, cool for you that your question didn't get answered, because now I will directly connect you. And how perfect you guys live in the same state. Anyone else want to make a comment? Have a question? Someone said, sorry, no camera or microphone. I've definitely been raised in, lived in, and raised my kids in scarcity mindset. I've known this for years, but have not been sure how to break that pattern, especially with student debt. Each week is shedding some light. Beautiful. And I want to encourage all of you to remember that how you were raised is back there. None of you are babies anymore, are you? No one's a baby. I can look at you. So why do we keep talking about our childhood? Because there's also a lot of things from your childhood you decided to ditch. Your mom and dad said, be home by 11 o'clock. Can you stay out later? Yes. Your mom and dad also had other rules. You've chosen to adopt your own. So can we please stop blaming our childhood for the good or the bad? You are your person today. It's not your childhood's fault why you are great or why you're not. It's just your past. And believe it or not, it's all made up. If you have more than one child, and let's say they're older than 10, ask them about their experience of life. Do you think they're going to have a different experience, even though they're raised by the same two people or the same person? Yes. It's all made up. That's the cool part. That's the super cool part, is when we understand that our thinking, it's just made up. And you don't have to do anything about it, or you can do everything about it. Just depends on what occurs to you to do. So many golden nuggets in here today. Will we? Yes, for the replay, I'm absolutely going to send all of you the replay. It will be available for 1 week. Do not ask me next Wednesday for this replay. I will tell you no. I promise you. I am considering sending this out for transcript, cleaning up the transcript, and perhaps making that available. I will tell you, I am going to be the one that edit it. It will cost me my time. You will have to do something for it. Probably leave some kind of review, which should be easy enough about today. If I do that and offer the transcript, I will let you know. If you're not getting emails from me, that's not my fault. That's your fault. Look in your trash, look in your spam, white label my email list, my email address, so that you can get this important stuff from me, because it does matter. If you reach out to Wealth Factory, I should have put a link in here directing them so they know you came from me. Please tell them. Not that they treat anyone differently, that's not what I'm saying, but I do have a very special relationship with all of them at Wealth Factory. And so it's a good identifier when you come in there to be a friend of mine. And who knows, maybe it'd be fun for all of us to get together and meet in a city and go to one of Garrett's comedies. It's really funny. Sarah can attest to that. And the 2-day event, the Win Them Play, incredible, absolutely incredible. Okay, any last minute? We've got 2 minutes. Anyone? I want to acknowledge Erin Jacobs Stagner. She and her daughter rode 111 miles on their bikes on Sunday for a benefit. And just to also come home, acknowledge how thin and trim and fit you are looking. So great job. Anyone else? Anyone? Bueller? Great to see my Alaskan sisters. We're all right 3 here together. Wendy, Stacy, and I. So that's pretty cool. You know, I also, this would be a great thing. So Stacy and I, so Stacy's in the boot camp. All of you know that. And we also do private coaching together as well. Stacy and Wendy both are on every single one of my party lists. And I throw a lot of parties, do I not? And so Stacy, here's something I'd like you to speak to, since we also coach together. And the reason I want you to speak to this is, I think a lie has been perpetuated in our profession of don't be friends with your practice members, that in some way it's this terrible thing. Like, obviously this isn't like doctor-patient relationship, but it is client-coach relationship. And what, yeah, I guess just speak to that.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that honestly I still am working on, because you taught me that. You said, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to be friends or hang out with the people who share your values and your lifestyle and want the same things that you do. And I think I even called you the other day and I said, I'm calling as a friend because I wanted to be like, there's some boundaries, sort of, right? Like, I'm not calling expecting you to take care of me or to step up and do stuff, but the people that are in our practices are the people that want what we have to offer. And oftentimes, I mean, I learned so much from them and the other moms, and I've reached out to them. I don't do it enough because I feel like I'm supposed to stay in some sort of doctor role and not reach out. But the ones that I have reached out to and have really perpetuated friendships with are the ones who asked if we would do underground chiropractic care here if everything went south. So it's been great. Those are the people that I want to surround myself with when I'm not there in the office with them too.
And I just think, like, you know, if we want to hang out with people with similar values, you know, during this COVID madness, the people who come into your practice and they're still moving about the world, they're your people, right? The individuals who invest in their healthcare, they're coming into your practice, you know, like individuals who value family, they're coming into your practice. So if we're looking in our world to create connections and relationships and friendships, like, there's a whole group of them right there. Why can't we be friends? And some of my closest friends when I was in practice, that their kids got invited to all of Samson and Micah's parties. And when, you know, when we threw New Year's parties or whatever, of course I'm going to invite them. They're my friends. Like, in the office, I deliver a service, you pay me. That's how it works. When I go to their businesses, I pay them. And so, you know, just like what Garrett was talking about, like, the top relationship is between us and God, right? Then it's ourselves, then it's our family, then it's our tribe, then it's our community. Well, in order to really and truly permeate your community more, wouldn't it make sense to have tighter relationships with your tribe? I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Like, work smarter, deepen those relationships. And whoever told you that, it's because somebody told them who likely overstepped a boundary and was inappropriate. Are you going to be inappropriate? Please don't be. No. Okay, well then, on that rule. That's my opinion. So, hey, thank you so much. This was a blast. I had such a great time with all of you. I love and appreciate you. Thanks for hanging through to the very end. Be watching for emails to come out. Be watching for the Mindset Masterclass. I got to tell you, it is a great place to start on this investing journey. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you, you can put any kind of strategy into place, but if your mind, if your thinking is already cannibalizing your finances, then the strategy just isn't going to work. So first, it's really important that that you get your mindset and your thinking. Just become aware of it. I'm not saying get it straight because it's already straight, but know what it's about. So, all right. Thank you. Been trying to get on one of these for the last couple of years. So I'm grateful it has finally great timing. Yay, Rashay. I'm so glad too. I'm glad that you're here. Bye everyone. Have a great day. See ya.